What's the relationship? So Godfrey talks about legitimization of these things. A lot of these people, or some of these people, use their access to wealth to also push their social media platforms. So they become social media influencers. Now, what I want to do this morning is just do a quick interview with the researchers who did the study I read about. So,
the English language one?
Yes. So there's a story that we read on citinewsroom.com where a team of researchers led by Ramos Asafo J have found that social media use is negatively impacting the performance of Ghanaian students. They did a study in Fiaseman Senior High School, and the research team was comprised of Ramos, Ronaldo Semensa, Ernest Siklu, and Enoch Swansea Imprim. So what I wanted to do was to just dig a bit deeper into the study, what they were trying to find and what they found. And I feel like parents need to
listen to
this because we will do a separate show on the social media platforms that students are exposed to and the effects of these social media platforms, not just on their English language, but on their mental health and on a lot of things. But I feel like this is a good entry point. So permit me, Sky, to enter this related discussion with, I think it's Dr.
Yes, he's Dr.
Ramos Asafo J. Doc, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Honorable Bernard.
Yeah, so I read a story and I was a bit alarmed that social media use in a secondary school was so prevalent that a number of the respondents to your study said they were actually addicted. And then you also found that the exposure and usage of these social media platforms by the students was adversely affecting the way they processed and wrote English. Just give me some context. What were you looking for and why did you do this study?
Okay, thank you very much, Bernard. Actually, as lecturers or scholars in the area of language, we decided to conduct this investigation. Normally, you do research based on some observations that you make around. So we decided to go into that. And then, most importantly, if you look at the school that this study was conducted, and that is Fiaseman Secondary School, you realize that their performance is actually in the WASI has not been very good. For instance, in 2016, out of 427 students who start for the WASI, none was able to make a grade of A1. And it will, interest you to note that out of that 427 students who start for the examination, about 254 had poor grades in that is D7, E8, and then F9. So this alarming statistic caused us to want to, do further investigation at that, site. And it's interesting that, so we decided to look at two critical, areas and then see how it goes. So we sought to identify the social media platforms that the students happen to be exposed to, obviously because we felt that social media could have an influence on some of these negative, statistics that, I'm talking about now. And apart from that, we wanted to find out how the students' level of addictiveness to social media was and how it reflects on their English language writing performances. So our focus was actually on their writing, obviously because, you see, in the WASI, you know that students who fail have problems. If the student fails only in the English language, it's obvious that the student has problems progressing to the next level. And the WASI is predominantly a written examination. We have all gone through this exam and you know that they do some listening tests, but the thrust of the examination is writing. So these are the reasons that cause us to want to find out what actually was going on in this side, that is Fiaseman SHS. And then, as you have mentioned, we found some of these negative happenings.
Yeah. Before I go into the findings, I noticed you use Kaplan and Heinlein's characterization of social media classes, which I thought was quite interesting. So you have what is called the virtual worlds, which include blogs and micro blogs like Twitter. Then you have content communities like YouTube. You have social networking services like Facebook, BB Chat, and then you have virtual second worlds like Second Life, and then you have virtual gaming worlds like the world of Warcraft and Minecraft and all that. Now, did you find that these students were into all these 6 categories of social media platforms?
Yes, their involvement in the use of social media is multifaceted, as you have mentioned. It cuts across. They don't actually have particular interest in one area or the other. It is where what interests them, or where they get their joy, or their elation that they actually gravitate towards. And so, as you said, before we get to the findings, you realize, or when we get there, you realize that there were a number, the social media platforms that they happen to use or know or exposed to were various. And some of these examples that we will talk about later, fit within some of these classifications that you have mentioned.
So you were trying to find what the types of social media platforms they used. So I look at the research questions where you said, what social media networks are students most exposed to? That was question 1. And what are the students' level of addiction or addictiveness to social media, and how does it reflect on the English language? So let's do question 1. When you did question 1, what were the social media platforms that these students were predominantly using? And by the way, these are secondary school students, right? In Fiasema?
Yes.
SHS.
They are secondary school students. Ages averaging 17, 18, because they happen to be in Form 2. You see, Form 2 students, ages 18, 17. And so if you look at it for the social media platform that they are most exposed to, we looked at 4 thematic areas, or we identified 4 thematic areas out of the interactions we had with them. And the first one was, we wanted to find out the awareness, actually, of social media platforms. And it's interesting that, they told us that, yes, as you add, Facebook, they knew of Facebook, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Biscuits, Visa, and then, Zoom is also there, TikTok, and then, Telegram. So as you mentioned about the classification and other things, based on these that I've mentioned, you get to know that their exposure or their knowledge of social media platform was very wide. And apart from that, another area, based on that, we wanted to look at that, okay, fine, you know about these platforms, or, which ones are you signed up to? We wanted to check their participation, levels. Which ones are you signed up to? And we got the same WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. So if you check it, WhatsApp it happens to be very dominant here. Facebook follows very closely. In fact, the two appear to be dead meat. Then Twitter, Snapchat. And then others came in with the Telegram and the YouTube and the Biscuits and others. But we didn't stop there. After asking them to know the ones that they are signed up to, one could sign up to a platform without necessarily using it. So we wanted to use to identify whether they were using those platforms, whether they were visiting the platform. And it will interest you to know that averagely, most of them said that yes, they visited there. Some could not count the number of times they visited this platform that they were, exposed to. And some were able to mention that yes, for 2 days, maybe they visited there twice in a day, some every day. So the point is that on daily basis, we did not find any of the students indicating that they went a day without visiting these, social media platforms. And on the third team, we wanted to find out, fine, if you visit there, how long do you stay there? Because research has indicated that students lose valuable time or valuable learning time on social media doing things that are not pro-academic or various areas of study in school. So we wanted to find out that, okay, fine. So if you are there, what is the duration? How long do you stay there? And it will interest you, Bernard, to find out that some of them indicated that yes, they've been there for the past 2.5 years. They've been using it for the past 2.5 years. Some indicated that for the past 3 years they've been there, they've been using it. Some said 4 years they've been there, which indicate that if we are dealing with Form 2 students and they are indicating that they've been there for 3 years, 3.5 years, 4 years, they were exposed to, or they have been using this social media platform even prior to their enrollment into the secondary school.
Did you find out which devices they use to access these platforms? Because I don't know if feature phones and smartphones are allowed in our secondary schools, and a number of these platforms require those type of phones. So did you glean from the study the type of devices they used?
Okay, thank you. You know, the researchers, the 4 of us, assumed that, you know, these normally, if you are in the secondary school and you check the demography of the institution we are talking about, that is Tiaseman SHS, which is in the Takwa municipality, you realize that the exposure to laptops actually will not be that something that will be a lot. And based on the observations we made, we didn't do that scientifically, but we were very well assured that it was through these smartphones that these platforms predominantly access.
Wow, which is interesting because I'm not sure if secondary schools allow mobile phone usage within school hours. But so that's possibly a second question. But the most important question you said, which I want to address, is 2 things. You said in the report that a number of them admitted being addicted to using these platforms. What was your definition of addiction? When does usage of a social media platform become an addiction? And which percentage of your respondents confessed addiction to these platforms?
Okay. In the first place, you see, when you talk about addiction, it is something that is uncontrolled. You see, it is something that is uncontrolled. So you may decide consciously that, yes, I won't listen to, or I will not visit a social media platform or use the phone, for instance. But by impulse, if you keep using it, then it tells you that it is something that is more or less going beyond your own ability to control that particular behavior. So by that, that was explained to them. And it is based on this understanding that they indeed indicated that, and, you know, based on some of the insights I've given in respect of the time they use on social media and others, it goes to, confirm that they have been regular users or participants in these social media platforms, and these indicate or, you know, confirm to me or to the rest of the researchers that indeed they were addicted, and they agreed to the fact that they were addicted. And the second question has, if you could remind me.
So I'm saying that now. Let's talk about the effect on their language, which is the main content of the study. So, what was the conclusion? That students who use these social media platforms, they write grammar poorly? Do they misunderstand English? Is it their spelling that is affected? How does the frequency of use of these platforms affect their written English?
Yeah, you see, the major problem with the usage of social media platforms, especially among these students, is the use of these shorthand and these informal constructions. For instance, someone spelling for the sake of convenience will go for the letter 4 and the U. Someone will go for the letter U and others. So when you check what happened there, you realize that most of them unconsciously use some of these informal or non-standard constructions in their formal academic writings. You see, so in their English language, they indicated that, yes, it was found that most of them use some of these non-standard, unacceptable Englishes or, you know, constructions, words and others in these writings. And what happened is that these culminated in poor results, because the teacher of the English language will entertain some of these solecisms or grammatical violations, and they will punish you. And so that is how this actually results in some of these negative results that they record. Remember, I mentioned that the English language, the WASI that they write itself, is predominantly written. So if a student is allowing some of these non-standard forms to creep into their formal academic writings or essays, then obviously there's going to be a concomitant effect on their overall performances. And probably, as we indicated initially, this could be one of the reasons that result in some of the negative results that I've talked about, for instance, the one I mentioned in the 2016 at the Senior SHS.
Wonderful. So, Doc, finally, did you make any recommendations about the usage or access to social media by secondary school students on the basis of this study, so that you will write to whether it's the GES or to CHAS or to NAGRAT or whichever body? What are the recommendations for further action?
Yes, I was very happy when you wanted to find out the devices that they use. You see, the devices. Apart from the scientific area, you realize very well that these are the students find ways of sending some of these phones and others to school. You see, this is personal. So, if the society or the stakeholders of education know that it is difficult to stop them from bringing in these rules, then what you have to do is to find a way to turn the negative usage of these devices into positive uses. You see, because let's not get it wrong here. There are positive effects of social media use and they are negative. So we must pay attention to maximizing the positive aspects or benefits of social media use. One example is online dictionaries. Okay, if it's only English scholars and let me say linguists and others who are actually well versed with some of these phonetic transcriptions that you find against words in the dictionary, it's not easy to read them. But based on these social media platforms and some of these apps and dictionaries, individuals can just press a button and a word can be pronounced in its standard form for the person to know without necessarily having to struggle over how to pronounce the word. So one recommendation that we made is that yes, the students and the teachers must make sure that some of these positive apps are installed on these phones of the students, and then they get them to engage in some useful academic practices using some of these devices, even during classes time. You see, even during classes time, and the more they get interested in those positive ones, the more it is that they will be wanting to use it more for us to be able to reverse the negative trend. So one is that at times also, there are websites that offer free educational materials. For crying out loud, the library is virtually electronic now. The world is evolving. Physical libraries are not as solid as they don't contain enough volumes as electronic libraries do have. So one thing that can be done is that because of the myriad resources, books, articles, and a lot that are available on these their apps and websites and others, why don't we find ways of getting these students signed up to some of these platforms? There is Amazon is there and co, so that they can subscribe. Institutions can subscribe. Students can be made to make downloads at particular times, read, make valuable presentations in class based on these for teachers to be able to trace that indeed the students got this information from this particular source. So that way we will be rechanneling their use of the social media, the negative use, into positive, and benefits. Apart from that too, the teachers could also help in students in selecting the appropriate social media sites that they can use. So teachers are very central to this discourse that we are having. They are very critical in this particular discourse because if a teacher, suggests that, okay, use app A, go and look for app B, it has this information, it has that information, then more or less they are being guided. Remember, these are children. This is child learning. This is pedagogy. And the child relies about 80% on what the teacher does. It's in the university or, beyond the SHS level that we deal with andragogy, where we talk about adult learning, where reliance on the lecturer is about 15 to 20%. But if you reverse the situation, the students are mostly reliant on the teacher here. And so this is something that can be done by the teachers also. And then, this normal, I won't say normal anyway, but counseling. You counsel them, you take them through processes. How many schools take time to engage students on social media issues?
Wow.
How many?
Doc, these are important findings from a very important research we will be exploring further. Thank you for talking to us, Dr. Ramos Asafo-Adjei, who led a team of 4 researchers to study social media use in Fiancé Senior High School. A number of fascinating outcomes. The prevalent social media platform, Facebook, WhatsApp. And I think those were the 2 most popular social media platforms that these students used. And that suggests that they were using devices which were not basic. And a lot of them said they had used the devices for 2, 3, or 4 years. And these were from 2 people. So that means that they started using this in JSS. Yeah. And that some admitted they were addicted to using the devices. And there was a direct effect on the quality of their written English, which affect their WASSCE results. For me, with the issue of technology usage, a double-edged sword. You use it to learn. The dictionary is great. You can get good research doing. But I would say, for example, that the same way that SIMs are being registered with Ghana cards, so that we know whose SIM card is being used for what. There's no way a secondary school student should be on Facebook, because I don't think it helps their learning. A secondary school student can have access to certain search engines that are more child-friendly. So, for example, instead of using a search engine like Google, there's a search engine called DuckDuckGo, which is very, how shall I say, a safe search. It's almost like a safe search intrinsic. Okay, and there are a number of them. That's number 1. Number 2, if a child or 14-year-old, 13-year-old has a phone, which is a feature phone, and then this person can go on Facebook, even WhatsApp, I think is a problem, right? Because you can still benefit from the device and social media in a safe way, but because of anonymity, all right? And I think our authorities need to start coming up with stringent requirements for registration, so that if somebody is going to go on a social media platform, they need to have their real ID. Because, for example, your national ID number has your age on it. Unlike your email address. An email address is not a proof of identity. All right. So if you're saying people below 17 should not use certain social media devices, we must make entry of an ID, a valid ID number, part of the requirement. Do you get my point?
Yeah.
Because I'm surprised that people in a boarding school can use social media so much that they say they are addicted to it. And now that
a lot of time on their hands.
And now that the numbers have ballooned, it means you are now having 50 teachers to 5,000 students. So they can't even supervise what the students are doing.
Is not strong.
So imagine the kinds of things they are being influenced by using those devices in school. It's a big concern. I know it's not related to what we're discussing, but I mean.